consider job with the armed forces as their career, like the Gurkhas. Many British soldiers tend to leave the army after completion of 2 to 4 years of service for 2 reasons. One, there are windows of employment opportunities in the civilian life in the UK, particularly for those who have gained skills while serving in the army. 2, their preserved pension at age 60 is secured by just completing a 2-year assignment with the army, whereas a Gurkha soldier is not eligible for a preserved pension even if he has served for 14 years. The British government always says that the cost of living in Nepal is low, hence the low rates of pension for Gurkhas. The question of cost of living in Nepal is baseless and irrelevant. The Gurkhas served alongside the British soldiers in countries like Hong Kong, Brunei, Australia, New Zealand, USA, and the UK, where the cost of living was high and is high. Why did not the cost of living rates apply to Gurkhas then? Why were they paid drastically low pay and allowances compared to their British colleagues? Would anyone dare tell Mr. Kofi Annan that his pension would be on the living standards of council? Certainly not. The Minister of Defence handpicked certain Gurkhas for Sanders Commission officers and some Nepali nurses to join the Queen Alexander's Royal Army Nursing Corps. The Tripartite Agreement of 1947 is silent over such preferential provisions. The Sanders Gurkha Commission officers and Queen Alexander's Royal Army Nursing Corps personnel get UK rates of pension despite retiring in Nepal, where the so-called cost of living is very low. This also applies to the likes of Lieutenant Colonel retired J.P. Cross, who is now settled in Nepal but draws UK rates of pension. Should not his pension be reduced to match the cost of living in Nepal? Are the Gurkhas who are now settled in UK legally, having retired from the British Army, get paid as per their British counterparts just because the cost of living in Britain is much higher? The Ministry of Defence must stop pulling wool over people's eyes. A proportionate rate of pension for the Gurkhas is therefore morally and legally justified. People of different nationalities serving with the United Nations or any international organization are paid equally. There are no separate sets of rules for employees who hail from countries with either low or high costs of living. Even the Indian Army Gurkhas and Gurkha contingent Singapore Police Force are paid exactly the same rates as their citizens. Same methods of calculations are applied by both the Singapore and the Indian governments without any discrimination. The British Ministry of Defence is the only institution adopting the unfair double standards in their system. The risk to life is high in the British Army compared to the Nepali or the Indian armies. The British Army is more involved in operations and conflicts around the world, and the Gurkhas have always played an active role. Even at this very moment in time, the Gurkhas are deployed in operations and war zones around the world. Considering the risk of life and the quality of work executed by the Gurkhas, their demand for equality and justice should be honored without delay. Compensation. This is another important issue that the Ministry of Defence should seriously consider. The Gurkha pay and allowances were well below their British counterparts, even though they served soldier to soldier in the same theatres, fought the same war, and thus exposed to the same danger. In Hong Kong, a Gurkha soldier's pay was less than that of a Filipino. The Gurkhas were given second-rate food and accommodations. They were kept separated for a very long periods of time from their families, and this is an abuse of human rights and family values. You may recall that Lance Corporal Hari Bahadur Thapa and Rifleman Lal Bahadur Bura were evidently paid an out-of-court settlement to compensate for the loss of pay and allowances during their service. This is an adequate proof that the Ministry of Defence has discriminated against the Gurkhas, yet willfully choose to hide this fact from the soldiers in the same category. This will now pave way to all Gurkhas for the compensation they rightly deserve without resorting to litigation. It is therefore only logical that the pre-1947 Gurkhas are awarded compensations to make for the loss in pays and allowances during their entire service. Pension for widows and Gurkhas sent on redundancy. Pension for Gurkha widows should be as per the British widows. There is no social security in Nepal, and after the death of husbands, the Gurkha widows suffer extreme financial difficulties. Gurkhas who are discharged without any pension should be considered for a preserved pension, just like a British soldier at age 60 if they have completed more than 2 years of service in the Medical expenses for retired Gurkhas should be borne by the Ministry of Defence in full. The current system of Gurkha Welfare Trust, in short GWT, coughing up funds for the veterans' medical expense is totally unacceptable. The GWT is a charitable organization and its used funds were raised by the Gurkhas themselves or donated by some philanthropists and countries sympathetic to Gurkhas like GWT Canada and GWT USA. This should be used sensibly for the education of Gurkha children and other welfare benefits of the retired Gurkhas. The Ministry of Defence cannot sideline itself by just contributing to the administrative costs of the Gurkha Welfare Trust. The Gurkha Welfare Trust should be transparent and should also have Gurkha veterans as its trustees. Gurkhas should also be allowed to claim medical expenses incurred in other medical institutions other than those substandard government hospitals in Nepal authorized by the so-called Gurkha Welfare Trust. Due to lack of specialist treatments, modern equipment and logistics in the government-run hospitals in Nepal, the veterans are compelled to spend enormous amount of money in other specialist private hospitals in Nepal and India. Life-saving drugs are not readily available in these Nepalese hospitals. In the worst cases, the veterans have no choice but to travel to India for treatment. Medical expenses incurred in India are not reimbursed. So, the veterans face more financial hardships. Indian government provides free medical treatment for their Gurkha veterans in both army and private hospitals in India. No such facilities exist for the British Gurkhas in Nepal. Indefinite leave to enter UK. The British government has recently authorized only the post-1 July 1997 Gurkhas the indefinite leave to enter UK, in short, ILE. This is an insult to the majority of the veterans who fall in the pre-1997 category. This has brought about a big divide between the Gurkhas themselves. Major wars and conflicts, as I said earlier, took place before 1997, where Gurkha veterans played vital roles. Hundreds of thousands of Gurkhas laid their lives for Britain. It is a shame that those Gurkhas who have shed rivers of blood for this country continue to suffer discrimination and are left totally disillusioned and neglected. Millions of people have been allowed to migrate and settle in this country from around the world. The Gurkhas, who stood by the British in the worst of times and contributed in glorifying the British history, are today not even allowed to enter into this country. Even the UK immigration laws have provisions for ILE for those who have completed a minimum of 4 years ground service. The July 1997 cut-off date is a gross injustice done to its most trusted and loyal friends. The tripartite agreement of 9 November 1947. We now understand that this document is not fully relevant, even antiquated, in the present context. This is an outdated loose document that needs urgent review. It was signed 59 years back when Nepal was not a democratic country and was ruled by the autocratic Gurkhas. Time has changed, and Nepalese are now more educated to understand the complexities of such important documents. Until now, the TPA has now only been used to the advantage of the British government. It does not address all the issues that need to be addressed in the socio-politically transformed situation. It is our view that Gurkhas should be treated on equal footing in all respects. The bipartite agreement of 7 November 1947, signed by the British and the Indian government and made part of the main tripartite agreement of 1947, is totally unfavorable to the Gurkhas in terms of pay, pension and other facilities. Nepal is not a signatory to this document and therefore not obliged to abide by it. It must be realized once again that we serve the British Army and not the Indian Army. The Indian government has also clarified its position by saying it has no objection to Nepal and Britain entering into a separate bipartite agreement if they so wished. Payment of pensions in pound sterling. Having served as an integral part of the British forces, the pension of the Gurkhas should be calculated and paid in the UK currency and not the Indian rupees. Foreign currency will help the veterans pay for their children's higher education and also